Is Raleigh, North Carolina actually affordable? This is the exact question that I asked myself before me and my wife moved out here from Dallas, Texas. Let me preface, the answer to this question depends entirely on where you're coming from. But in this video, we're going to be comparing the cost of living in Raleigh, North Carolina against the national average to give you some perspective. Now, if you only care about the cost of living and you don't care about anything else, so you don't care about the quality of life or the school system, the healthcare system, traffic, all the different parts that make up a city, then I'm just gonna skip to the end of this video and tell you that there are more affordable places to go. For example, Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, you get the picture. I'm going to assume that you're looking for something reasonable, something in the middle that has a little bit of everything. Does Raleigh, North Carolina fit that bill? Let's find out. Now, the best way to determine the cost of living and compare is to get an actual definition. What is cost of living? Today, we're going to define it as the cost of housing, cost of groceries, the healthcare, transportation, utilities, entertainment. Take all that, look at the average income for the city, and then compare. Let's start by looking at housing. The average American will spend about 30% of their paycheck just on housing alone. The general consensus is that Raleigh, North Carolina is about 10 to 13% more expensive in terms of housing than the US national average. To give you specific numbers, a typical Raleigh home will cost you $450,000, while a typical US city home will cost you around $392,000. If you were to break that down into monthly mortgage payments, you're looking at a difference of about $300 to $400 a month. Now, not everybody owns a home or can afford to own a home right away. So what about for the people who rent? Typical Raleigh rent is around $1,700, while the average American is paying $1,475 for rent in their city. Very close to the difference in housing as well. Next, we're going to look at groceries, and the way to determine the average cost of groceries is not to say, here's how much they spend on groceries a week, because everyone spends different amount of money on different types of food. So what we're gonna look at is the cost of staple items. You're looking at milk and butter and eggs and things that most people get on a regular basis. Based on those numbers, Raleigh is 3% less expensive when it comes to groceries than the average US city. Looking at the average cost of healthcare, on the other hand, Raleigh is actually 10% more expensive when it comes to doctor visits and prescriptions. And Raleigh does actually have a very good healthcare system, and that might be why we're paying a premium for it, but that's just a guess. And on the other hand, when we look at transportation, Raleigh actually saves 10% versus the average US city when it comes to car maintenance and gas and car insurance as well. Utilities was nearly a wash with just a 2% savings for Raleigh residents versus the average American city. This would be your gas and your water and your electricity and everything else. Entertainment was also pretty close. We save about 4% here in Raleigh versus the average American city. But again, it's one of those things where, yeah, the price of coffee might differentiate a little bit, or the price of a movie ticket, but it really just comes down to how much you're willing to spend on entertainment. So those are your basic living expenses, but before we dive into those numbers, we're going to take a look at what the average Raleigh resident and household earns and compare that against the average. In Raleigh, the average worker will earn $43,000 this year, while the average worker in your typical US city will earn $38,000, a difference of $5,000 or 12%. And when we look at household income, that difference is about the same at a 13.5% difference. Now that we have all the facts, we can actually answer the question, is Raleigh affordable? And there's definitely a pattern that we can see here. Housing is expensive in Raleigh, but the same amount that the housing goes up, the income goes up as well. And all the other basic living expenses are about the same or a little bit lower, except for healthcare. Pretty much in line with the average American city. So it's definitely not New York or California. And if you don't want to take my word for it, this is what US News had to say. The cost of living in Raleigh-Durham is roughly on par with the national average, with home prices climbing significantly over the past few years. So the last question I have is, if housing is the one thing keeping Raleigh from being super affordable, then is there anything we can do about it? Property taxes in Raleigh are significantly lower than other states. So depending on where you're coming from, run the numbers and look at the difference in property taxes. It might make the difference on your monthly payment. The housing market is continuing to increase because people are flooding into Raleigh, North Carolina. And because of that, we have reasonable expectations, although it's not set in stone, for appreciation going forward in the coming years. So even if it's a little more pricey than other markets, it's also a good market to invest in over the long run. Personally, I believe that in the next 10-15 years, if I buy and hold real estate here, it's gonna be worth more than I bought it for. Lastly, I wanna emphasize the importance of working with a realtor who actually understands your needs when it comes to that monthly payment. For example, I just had one of my clients, a really sweet couple, go under contract on a new construction home, beautiful, modern, 3-bed, 2-bath, good square footage, great neighborhood, and they got it at a 5% fixed interest rate. So here's what I think. I think Raleigh is affordable. Do I think it's the most affordable? No, but I think it's a good place to live and it's a great place to buy into. And if you're looking to move to Raleigh or looking to make your first or next purchase here in the area, then that's exactly what this channel is here to help you do. You can call the number below or click the link in the description to set up a strategy consultation call with me and my team this week, and we can help you get started on making this a seamless and enjoyable process for you. And if you want to learn more about Raleigh real estate, then make sure you click on these videos next.